Do you ever wonder how quickly trust can turn into betrayal? How the people you let into your home, the ones you feed and support, can sometimes be the ones who break your heart the deepest. Before I begin, I want to thank you for being here with me, listening to my story. If you're comfortable, I'd love to know where are you listening from and what time is it for you right now. It means more than you know to have you share this moment with me. My name is Barbara Lewis. I'm 70 years old, born and raised right here in Dallas, Texas. And if there's one thing life has taught me, it's that blessings often walk hand in hand with burdens. Folks around here like to say, you don't know the weight of a cross until you're the one carrying it. For me, that cross was both love and betrayal, to sides of the same coin. I grew up in a working-class family. My daddy was an oil field worker, and my mama ran a small diner off the highway. We weren't wealthy, but we had something better: grit. Mama always told me, hard work never killed nobody, but laziness will starve you to death. Daddy would nod along, wiping his forehead with a rag soaked in sweat and oil, and I believed him. That's the soil I grew out of: discipline, sweat, and faith. From a young age, I knew I wanted to build something of my own. Not just a job, but a legacy. And by the grace of God and the lessons I learned at that little diner counter, I built a small but steady distribution company. Nothing fancy, mostly supplying cleaning products and small hardware to local businesses, but it was honest, and it grew year by year. It kept food on my table, a roof over my head, and dignity in my heart. My husband, Richard, stood by me in those years. He was the calm to my fire, the voice that steadied me when I worked too hard. We didn't have much time together. He passed away when Hannah, our only daughter, was still in high school. Losing him was like losing my right hand, but I told myself, Barbara, you can't fold. You've got a girl to raise, and she's watching you, so I worked harder. I poured every ounce of myself into that company and into Hannah. And Lord, was she worth it? She was bright, ambitious, with eyes that sparkled when she talked about the future. I'd sit on the porch some nights, listening to the cicadas, and think, if I can just give her better than I had, maybe I'll have done right by this world. But here's the thing no one tells you about raising children. Love can blind you. It can make you overlook cracks until they become canyons. When Hannah met Eric, I wanted so badly to believe in him. He wasn't steady, didn't hold down jobs long, but he had a smile that could charm a room and words that made promises sound like poetry. Hannah's eyes lit up when she was with him, and that was enough for me. Maybe I confused my daughter's happiness with his character. Maybe I wanted so badly for her to have the love I'd lost that I ignored what was right in front of me. They married young. I remember standing in that church, holding back tears, praying under my breath, Lord, let this man be good to her. Let him be better than I fear. For a while, I convinced myself he was. When their finances stumbled, I opened my doors. It wasn't even a question. In Texas, family means you circle the wagons when times get hard. My mama used to say, when your kinfolk are drowning, you don't ask if they can swim, you just throw the rope. So I did. I welcomed them into my home, covered the bills, stocked the fridge, paid for the utilities, and when Eric struggled to find steady work, I offered him a place in my company. I thought, maybe this will help him grow. Maybe he just needs a chance, someone to believe in him. Hannah begged me too. She said, Mama, he just needs to feel trusted. Please. So I did it. I brought him into the very company I had built with sweat and sacrifice. The company that carried Richard's memory, my blood, my reputation. At first, it seemed fine. Eric showed up on time. He was polite, eager even. The employees respected him because of me. I let myself believe I'd made the right call. For months, I watched him, telling myself, see, people can change if you give them the space. But deep down, there was a little voice whispering, A feeling I couldn't shake, though I tried to bury it under hope, because sometimes life gives you warnings. Small ones. The way money didn't quite add up in the petty cash drawer. The way Eric brushed off responsibility with a smile too quick, too easy. The way Hannah avoided my eyes when I asked how they were really doing. Still, I pushed it aside. I wanted to believe. I needed to believe. Because admitting otherwise meant facing a truth I wasn't ready for. That the man my daughter had chosen, the man I had welcomed like my own, might not be trustworthy. You know, when you reach my age, you realize something trust is like fine china. You can lend it, but if it breaks, it will never be the same again. And I didn't know it then, but the cracks in my trust were already spreading. I remember one night, sitting on my porch after a long day. The stars were out, the air thick with Texas heat. I sipped my sweet tea and thought, maybe I'm being too hard on him. Maybe I'm just tired, but then another thought slipped in. Or maybe I'm being too soft. Maybe love for my daughter has blinded me to a truth I don't want to see. That night, I prayed again. Lord, if there's something I need to see, don't let me be blind to it. Show me what's real, even if it hurts. And he did. Just not in the way I expected, because truth doesn't knock politely. Truth storms in. And when it did, it came in the form of flashing police lights outside my home. But that's a story I'll save for the next part. For now, all I can say is this. The very man I trusted, the one I gave shelter, food, and work, was already laying the trap that would change my life forever. When you've spent a lifetime building a name, protecting your reputation, and keeping your hands clean, there's no pain sharper than watching it all drag through the mud, especially when the mud was thrown by someone you fed at your own table. That night, I'll never forget. I was in my living room, sitting with a cup of chamomile tea. Hannah had gone to bed early, and Eric was still out working late, or so he said. It was past 10 when I saw the red and blue lights flicker outside my window. At first, I thought maybe it was a neighbor's trouble. But then came the knock. Firm, heavy, final. Barbara Lewis? One officer asked when I opened the door. Yes, sir. What's going on? Ma'am, we have a warrant for your arrest. Fraudulent accounts and misappropriation of company funds. For a moment, my world went silent. My heart slammed against my ribs. Fraud? Me? I've run that business with integrity for decades. I opened my mouth, but the words didn't come. I saw Hannah on the stairs, frozen, her hand over her mouth, and behind her, Eric expressionless, almost too calm. That's when something deep in me knew. Still, I went quietly. I didn't scream or fight. In Texas, a woman's dignity is the last thing she can't let them take. So I straightened my back, slipped on my shoes, and let them lead me away. But inside, I was breaking. The police station was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. They showed me documents, accounts opened under my name, transfers routed from my company into shadow firms, my signature forged, my credentials stolen, and all I could think was, Eric, I whispered, Lord, is this what you meant when you told me to open my eyes? Because it burns, it cuts deeper than I can bear. I spent the night in a holding cell, a thin blanket on a metal bench, staring at the ceiling. At 70 years old, I was treated like a criminal, and my thoughts kept circling back to one thing, the boy I had let into my home, the man I had trusted because my daughter loved him. By morning, I was released on bail. My lawyer, Mr. Turner, met me outside, a good man, old-school Texan, with lines on his face carved from years of court battles. He looked me in the eye and said, Barbara, this wasn't your doing, but proving it won't be easy. Eric's smart, he covered his tracks, but not well enough. We'll find the holes. Back home, Hannah rushed to me. Mama, I swear I didn't know. I didn't know he did this. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling, and Eric? He barely looked at me. He muttered something about misunderstandings, about how things got complicated, but his eyes gave him away. They weren't guilty eyes. They were scared eyes. Scared of being caught, I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the collar and shake the truth out of him. But instead, I said nothing. Because silence in moments like that speaks louder than rage. Over the next weeks, the case unfolded like a nightmare. Mr. Turner dug into the records, and sure enough, it was Eric. He had created shell accounts, funneled inventory out under false invoices, even rerouted client payments. And the worst part, he had done it using my name, my signature, my decades of credibility. I sat in those meetings, listening, and thought, how could I have been so blind? The employees whispered. Some avoided my eyes. My reputation, everything I had built, was crumbling. And yet, through it all, I couldn't bring myself to hate Hannah. She was torn, caught between loyalty to her husband and love for her mama. I saw it in her face, the same look I had once given my own mother when I disappointed her. There's a saying folks use around here. Sometimes the rattlesnake you fear isn't in the grass, it's in your own boot. That was Eric. The danger wasn't outside. It was sitting at my dinner table. Mr. Turner laid out my options. We could press full charges, let Eric face prison time. Or, because of Hannah, because of the grandkids I dreamed of someday holding, we could pursue a plea that forced him into probation, restitution, maybe even community service. I wrestled with it. Night after night, I sat on that same porch where I had prayed for guidance years ago. I asked God again, what's right? Do I fight fire with fire, or do I choose mercy? Because he's not just a thief, he's my daughter's husband. And slowly, the answer came, justice doesn't always mean revenge. Sometimes justice is a mirror making someone face themselves in a way they can't run from. So I chose the path that hurt me but saved my name. I worked with my lawyer to cut a deal. Eric would avoid prison, but only under strict probation. He had to pay restitution, attend financial rehabilitation classes, and most importantly, he could never again be part of my company. The day we stood in that courtroom, the judge looked at me and asked, Mrs. Lewis, do you have anything to say before sentencing? I stood tall. My voice didn't shake, though my hands did. Yes, Your Honor. I built my life on trust and integrity. This man tried to take that from me, but I won't let him destroy what I've spent decades creating. My company, my reputation, they are mine. He may have used my name, but he does not define it. I hope one day he realizes that the easy road always ends in ruin. I forgive him as a man, but I will never trust him again. The gavel fell. The decision was made. Eric stood there, pale, his charm drained. Hannah wept. And me? I walked out of that courtroom with my head high, bruised but not broken. Back home, the house felt different, quieter. Eric packed his things soon after probation meant he had to move to meet requirements. Hannah stayed behind for a while, torn between her love for him and the truth she could no longer deny. And me? I poured myself back into the company. It wasn't easy. Clients had doubts, employees had questions, but I faced each one with honesty. Slowly, brick by brick, trust began to rebuild. But here's the truth. It was never the same. Once trust is shattered, even when you mend it, the cracks remain. Late at night, I'd sit on that porch again, listening to the cicadas, sipping my tea. And I'd whisper to myself, Barbara, you gave him shelter, you gave him work, and he gave you betrayal. But you chose dignity. And dignity is something no thief can ever steal. And deep inside, I knew the real battle wasn't against Eric. It was against the part of me that wanted to give up. And I refused to let that part win, because life had taught me one final lesson. You can lose money, jewelry, even reputation. But if you hold on to your principles, you'll always rise again. That was the beginning of my fight back. But it wasn't the end of the story. Not by a long shot. You can rebuild a business. You can repair a house. But rebuilding trust, especially with the people you love, that's the hardest construction job you'll ever take on. After Eric left under probation, the house felt like a ghost town. His absence wasn't just physical. It was a shadow that lingered in every corner. Hannah would sit at the dinner table, her plate half full, her eyes vacant. She tried to act strong, but I knew she was grieving not for Eric himself, but for the illusion of the life she thought she had. One night, she finally broke. We were washing dishes side by side, just like old times. Her hands trembled on the sponge, and tears slipped down her cheeks. "Mama," she whispered, "I feel like my whole life was a lie." I dried my hands, placed them on hers, and looked her straight in the eyes. "Baby, lies don't define you. What defines you is what you do when the truth finally shows up." She nodded, but her tears kept falling. And I thought to myself, this, right here, is where the real healing begins. Not in courtrooms, not in contracts, but in kitchens, in late-night talks, in the slow rebuilding of a broken spirit. The company was limping. Clients were nervous, some had pulled back. My staff respected me, but they were cautious too after all. It was my own son-in-law who nearly ruined us. I could feel their eyes on me. Would Barbara still lead with the same strength? Could she recover from this hit? And I asked myself the same thing every morning in the mirror. At 66 years old, do I still have the fight left in me? The answer every time came back. Yes. So I rolled up my sleeves and went back to basics. I called clients one by one, not through emails, not through letters, but phone calls, real conversations. I said, "This is Barbara Lewis. I know what you've heard, but I want you to hear the truth straight from me." Some hung up, some hesitated, but some, thank God, listened. And little by little, business started breathing again. Hannah surprised me. One morning, she walked into my office with a stack of notes. "Mama," she said, "I've been studying marketing, digital platforms, social media campaigns. We've been doing business the old way, and it works. But if we want to grow again, maybe it's time to blend the old with the new." I looked at her, my daughter, who had once leaned entirely on her husband, now standing with fire in her eyes, and I felt something warm spread through me. Maybe this is what God was shaping her for all along. So we started side by side. She showed me how to run campaigns online, how to reach younger clients who never would have heard of us otherwise. And I showed her how to sit across from a client, shake hands firmly, look them in the eye, and let them know their money was in safe hands. The balance was beautiful. She brought innovation. I brought wisdom. Together, we built something stronger than before. But healing isn't just about business. It's about family. There were nights when Hannah still cried over Eric. As much as I despised what he did, I had to remind myself he was her husband, and grief doesn't vanish with the signing of a court order. So, I held her when she cried. I listened when she asked, "What did I do wrong? Was it my fault?" And every time I said, "No, baby. His choices were his own. You can't plant roses in poisoned soil and expect them to bloom." Slowly, she believed me. Slowly, she stopped blaming herself. Months rolled by, and then a year. By the time Eric's probation was halfway through, our company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. We had doubled our outreach, gained new clients, and even expanded into areas we'd never touched before. I remember one particular day. Hannah walked into my office with a contract in hand, our biggest deal since the scandal. She laid it on my desk, her smile radiant. "Mama," she said, "we did it." Together, I looked at her, my heart swelling. For the first time in a long time, I saw not just my daughter but my partner. I whispered to myself, "Sometimes God breaks us in order to rebuild us stronger." Eric tried reaching out once. A letter. He wrote that he was sorry, that he was trying to change. Hannah read it, her hands shaking, then folded it quietly and placed it in a drawer. Mama, she said softly, I don't hate him, but I can't go back. I won't go back, and in that moment, I knew my daughter had finally reclaimed herself. There's a saying around here. A crooked tree don't grow straight just because you water it. That was Eric. And Hannah had finally stopped watering what would never bear fruit. As the years rolled on, something beautiful happened. Clients began to speak of us not as a company that had survived scandal, but as a company that embodied resilience. My name, once dragged through the mud, was spoken with respect again. Not because I fought back with fire, but because I fought back with integrity. One evening, Hannah and I sat on the porch together. The sun dipped below the Texas horizon, painting the sky orange and purple. She held my hand and said, Mama, I used to think Eric destroyed me, but now I see he was just the fire that burned away my weakness. What's left is stronger. I smiled, tears brimming my eyes. Baby, that's the lesson life keeps teaching me. You can't stop storms from coming, but you can decide whether you'll drown or learn to swim in deeper waters. Now, at 66, when I look back on it all, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. Because through betrayal, through humiliation, through the nights in cold holding cells and the whispers in courtrooms, I learned something precious. Dignity is worth more than diamonds, trust is worth more than money, and resilience is the wealth that no thief can ever steal. So, to all of you listening right now, I'll leave you with this. If someone has betrayed you, don't let that betrayal define you. Don't let it steal your voice, your name, your future. Stand up, straighten your back, speak your truth, and rebuild not just what you lost, but something even greater. Because sometimes the very hands that try to tear you down end up being the reason you rise higher than ever before. And to those of you sitting with a broken heart tonight, remember, broken things can be mended, broken people can heal, and broken trust, though scarred, can still lead you to the kind of strength you never knew you had. That's my story. That's my truth. And if you're listening, tell me, where are you tonight? What time is it where you are? Because wherever you sit, whatever pain you carry, I want you to know you're not alone. I'm Barbara Lewis. I was betrayed, but I wasn't broken. And neither are you.